arguments in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health presented a variety of issues for the justices to debate. The justices' questions ranged from asking when life begins to why viability would be the most appropriate legal standard. And joining me now is Ryan Anderson, president of the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Ryan, welcome back. Great to see you. First off, your reaction to the oral arguments today. What stood out to you?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that they went about as well as we could have hoped for. There was not a single question from any of the conservative justices that caused me to have concern that they might be on the wrong side of this issue. There was nothing that the pro-choice lawyers said that I think caused anyone to reconsider this case. The lawyer representing the pro-life side did a great job. So I think one takeaway is that we had a good day in court today. And I think that's a good thing for anyone who cares about justice for the unborn.
Absolutely. And I know you've been following this very closely all along, and you were pretty vocal on Twitter today, particularly mentioning Justice Sotomayor's line of questioning, even one comparing brain-dead individuals to babies in the womb and whether or not they can feel pain. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Sure. I was struck by, just to be blunt, how poorly constructed Justice Sotomayor's questions were. They just weren't that thoughtful. It was the type of thing that you expect from a freshman, late night, a philosophy BS session. But I think that's a sign of how weak the argument is for the pro-choice side on this. They can't ground it in the Constitution. They can't ground it in good science. They can't ground it in good philosophy. At one point, she asserted that it's only religion that could lead someone to be pro-life. If that's true, that's a really bad sign for secularism. But my viewpoint on this is that it's no more religious nor any less religious than the argument for why we shouldn't allow homicide for adults or for born children. It's the same exact argument that grounds our dignity, our innate value, our worth, whether we're in the womb or outside of the womb. And if that's only defensible on religion, so much the worse for secularists.
Yeah, and another thing I want to mention, too, because you were, on Twitter a lot today, we know you also talked about that you were talking to a former Supreme Court clerk who said the pro-abortion arguments were not well received by the justices. Let's touch on that, if you will.
Sure. I think that we only really heard a lot from two of the left-leaning justices, Justice Breyer and Justice Sotomayor. Justice Kagan was tellingly quiet, which either suggests that she knows that her side is going to be losing this case, or she's going to be trying to lobby the conservative justices, one-on-one, privately, between now and when they conference on Friday. It's important for court watchers to remember that this case won't be formally announced until probably the end of June. They're going to vote on it at the end of this week. Then they're going to start writing their opinions, circulating opinions. And we know from past cases that justices change their votes. They switch sides. It'll be important for us to make clear that nothing short of overturning Roe and overturning Casey is an acceptable outcome in this case.
Yeah, and Ryan, there was something that we heard a lot today. Maybe people weren't familiar with the stare decisis, or the court following its previous rulings, which seemed to be a cornerstone kind of the debate today. Can you talk to us about why that precedent is so important to the court, and why overturning a case of this magnitude could be so significant?
Sure. Stare decisis is an important judicial principle that we don't want the court, year to year, constantly changing what it says the law is, that we want consistency and predictability when it comes to the law. But when the court gets a decision egregiously wrong, it's up to the court to admit it and to correct the record, that our fidelity should be first and foremost to the Constitution, not to a past court ruling, especially when it's wrong about a matter of such important justice and human rights as the right to life. Justice Alito was brilliant on this, and he kept saying, all right, so Plessy v. Ferguson, the case that said that racial segregation was constitutionally acceptable, should the court not have overturned that decision? How long did it have to wait before it admitted a mistake and overturned that decision? Now, if you think racial discrimination was unconstitutional, you think racial discrimination is unjust, and I think both of those things, it's unjust, unconstitutional, the court should have gotten it right as soon as possible. It's even worse with abortion. Yeah. Right? Abortion is unjust, and it shouldn't. We shouldn't have waited this long. Now's the time for the court to finally get it right.
Yeah, right. Not a whole lot of time left, but quickly, your thoughts. How do you think this is going to shape up? And then also, if ultimately Roe versus Wade is overturned, what would happen? What would happen for the state's responsibility in regulating abortions?
So, a lot could change between now and when they finally announce a decision. But I think just going by today's oral arguments, I think we're in a good spot for a 6-3 ruling overturning Roe and overturning Casey. And it's going to be important for us to make clear that that's the only acceptable outcome here. What that would mean is that it would then return the abortion question to the democratic process. That means in all 50 states, citizens are going to have to be engaged to ensure that their elected representatives pass good laws protecting children, but so too at the federal level. Both Congress and the executive branch, the president, can enact policies that will protect children. And then the last thing I'll say is all of us need to create a culture in which both children and mothers are going to be welcomed, are going to be supported. We can pass laws that will allow more women to choose life, to have paid family leave, to have economic policies that make family formation and the choice to bear a child and to raise a child more feasible. I think if Roe is finally overturned, that's not the end of the pro-life movement. That's the beginning of a new stage for the pro-life movement.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. So much more we can talk about, but unfortunately running out of time. We always appreciate your expertise. Thank you again.
Thank you.